Welcome to our second half of our Pesach seminar this year. Thursday nights we do a parsha with Abravanel for 30 minutes, and so shall we do tonight as well. We would like to relate it, of course, to Pesach and to the Seder night for the Seder inspiration. For those who are not familiar with the style of Abravanel, so let me just say a few words about it and a few words about him. Also, Don Isaac Abravanel is one of the most well-known, fascinating, multifaceted Torah personalities, I would say, in all of Jewish history. He was born in Portugal in 1437. He died in Venice, in Italy, in 1508. He served kings. He served royalty in Portugal, in Spain, and again in Italy as well. He fled for his life on multiple occasions. He had a very tumultuous life, and yet he never wavered, not just in his faith, but he never wavered in his recognition of his role as the leader of the Jewish community, the leader of the generation, the responsibility that destiny had placed upon him to demonstrate exemplary Torah leadership in the most trying times. And this is reflected in his commentary on the Haggadah as well, and we'll talk about that in just one moment. In general, Galus and Geula, the experience of exile and redemption, occupied him profoundly. He lived, as I said, in Iberia. He lived in He was born in Portugal, but the family came from an old Castilian family, prominent members, leaders of the Jewish community for generations. He was descended from King David himself, and he was, in that sense, the kind of exilarch. But the Jews enjoyed, as is very well known, relative prosperity and acceptance in Spain for a long, long time. And unfortunately, that came to an end. I would say the beginning of the end, if we speak in very broad brushstrokes, was in 1391. And in retrospect, historians have recognized that that was really a series of blows and massacres in 1391 from which the Jews of Spain never completely recovered. Of course, it all came to a bitter, shocking, bitter end in 1492 when the Jews were expelled from Spain, and Abravanel was forced, together with the other members of his generation, to consider what factors, what sort of divine perspective can they gain a glimpse into to understand or to appreciate or to make sense of their terrible suffering, of the vicissitudes and of the shock. You know, it happened 500 plus years ago, and it is a date which is seared into Jewish memory. But at the time that it happened, it took them completely by surprise, profoundly shocked them. Many Jews lost their faith. Many Jews, again, as is well known, chose to kiss the cross even at the time, rather than go into exile. And he wrote a trilogy about Mashiach. Actually, these are among the most important and sophisticated works on the subject in all of Jewish literature, all of Torah literature, so all of Jewish literature as well. And it's in that context that we should consider his commentary on Haggadah Shel Pesach. The Haggadah is all about exile and redemption. Moreover, the Haggadah is a very, very popular text, and many sages, probably lesser lights as well, have written commentaries on the Haggadah, and more are produced year by year without fail. His Haggadah is one of the most popular, most reprinted of any commentary on the Haggadah ever. It's called Zevach Pesach. And Abravanel's style is to begin his approach to a subject or to a passage, to an extended passage, with a series of questions. So in his commentary on the Torah, as we have seen, he often will start with 10 or 15 or 20 or 25 questions, not necessarily on the whole Seder, but on a part of the Seder. And then he proceeds to address them one by one, to analyze them, to elaborate upon them, to elucidate them, and to often, in a very creative and a very fascinating, profound, sophisticated, occasionally dazzling way to solve all of those questions. His commentary on Haggadah Shel Pesach is like that as well, but he starts with 100 questions. It could be he was looking for that round number, but in any case, that's what he starts with 100 questions. And his whole commentary, which is extensive, deals with those 100 questions. So he treats the Haggadah as a literary work which is formulated with wisdom, with profound meaning, and he analyzes it in that way. Of course, the fate of any literary work which is very lengthy is that people may buy it, but they won't study it that much. And obviously, it's expensive to buy for that reason as well. So subsequently, he wasn't done by Abravanel himself, but someone, I don't know who, I'm not sure, perhaps there's a record, I'm not quite certain who, produced a condensed version called Sli Eish. Zevach Pesach means the Paschal sacrifice. It's like a hint to the Paschal lamb. And Sli Eish means roasted on fire. Now, when you roast meat on fire, it contracts. So you like improve it by roasting it. And therefore, someone came up with the name Tzli Eish for a condensation, a condensed version of his commentary. And that has been reprinted many, many times. It's difficult to even know how many times because usually it's been reprinted together with other commentaries as well. So Abravanel's commentary on Haggadah is very well known. It's available in English as well. Again, definitely only a selected set of passages there. You can buy it by Art Scroll. There are other versions which are available as well. I've indulged in this background because many of the commentaries that we study year by year are on the Parsha, and they don't necessarily have something to say explicitly about Haggadah Shel Pesach. Abravanel certainly does. For good or for better, I haven't studied all of his 100 questions and the answers on their questions, which takes up multiple hundreds of pages. So I'm not going to try to adumbrate that in the time we have left together tonight. I want to begin with, I think, a fascinating, beautiful explanation, profound, sophisticated explanation of Abravanel on the subject of the Korban Toda. Now, let's consider how this relates to Pesach, and it relates in a slightly ironic fashion. Firstly, the Korban Toda, the Thanksgiving offering, features in this week's Torah reading. So in his commentary on Parshas Tzav, which most of the years, roughly 2 years out of 3, coincides with Shabbat Hagadol. That is to say, the Shabbos immediately before Pesach is Parshas Tzav most of the time, unless it's a leap year. But most of the time, we read Parshas Tzav immediately before Pesach, and so it is this year as well. Now, Parshas Tzav deals with the Korbanot, and we learn a lot about the Korban Toda, the Thanksgiving offering. Now, it's interesting that the Haggadah Shel Pesach and the Seder night is permeated by the impulse of gratitude, thanksgiving, appreciation, Hallel. We recite Hallel at the Seder with a bracha as well. In fact, it's one of the mitzvahs of the Seder, mitzvahs drabanan of the Seder is Hallel. And so much of what we have in the Haggadah, besides the technical passages that comprise Hallel, the selections from Tehillim, but so much of what we say, most of what we say really is in the category of Hallel, like Dayenu, Dayenu, or V'hi Shamda Lavuseinu, V'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Matzilenu Miyadam, Hashem saves us from their hands. Obviously recounting the Exodus itself, the transmitting the memory and the experience of the servitude and the redemption and the miracles and the plagues that were visited on the Egyptians, and the fact that we were like beneficiaries of the divine miraculous intervention. It's all about appreciation and gratitude. That is the theme of the Korban Toda, which is a Thanksgiving offering. In fact, the Mishnah says that there are 4 circumstances, like types of experiences which a person might undergo for which he or she would be required to bring a korban toda. One of them is if a person is in prison and he's released from prison, if a person is ill and he recovers from serious illness, if a person traverses the sea, which by its nature in antiquity, certainly until modern times, was quite a dangerous enterprise because of shipwreck, because of disease, because of running out of food or water, or because of getting lost on the high seas, or because of storms, or because of pirates. And the fourth category is one who traverses a desert or wilderness. Again, bandits, highwaymen, etc., meant that that was a dangerous experience. So those are the four circumstances that would warrant or would even necessitate a person to bring a korban toda. Says the Vilna Gaon in a famous comment that the our ancestors who left Mitzrayim experienced all four of those. They were released from prison, from captivity. They crossed the sea on dry land. They went through the wilderness on their way to Mount Sinai. And on Har Sinai, according to Chazal, they were healed. Those who were injured or lame or blind or other kinds of health issues, they were all cured as well, according to Chazal. It's not explicit in the Torah, that one. So Vilna Gaon shows how, for that reason, when we consider Yetzias Mitzrayim, so Hallel and the experience of the requirement to express our gratitude is paramount. So far, this is not a great chidush. Anyone who's been to a Pesach Seder is well aware of that. Here's the irony, though. The Korban Toda actually was never brought on Pesach. An individual, even if he was in a circumstance where he needed to bring, or she needed to bring, could be done by a woman as well, to bring a korban toda, would never bring it on Pesach, was not allowed to bring it on Pesach. Why not? The answer is very simple. So I don't know if you have your Chumash with you, but if you want to take a look in the Chumash on chapter 7, verse 13, 14, actually 12 and 13. So there the Torah says, in describing the thanksgiving offering, I'm going to read it in English just for simplicity's sake. If he shall offer it for a thanksgiving offering, he shall offer with the feast thanksgiving offering, which is a sacrifice, but he should bring with it bread. And Abravanel explains that you can't eat all that meat without bread. So you need bread corresponding to the amount of meat. So he should bring thanksgiving offering unleavened loaves mixed with oil, unleavened wafers smeared with oil, loaves of scalded fine flour mixed with oil. Now those three are all matzah. That is to say, it's all unleavened. And by the way, generally speaking, we don't bring leavened bread to the Beis Hamikdash. We never offer it on the altar. But then in the next pasuk, in verse 13, with loaves of leavened bread, lechem chametz, shall he bring his offering with his feast thanksgiving peace offering. So this is why the Korban Toda was never brought on Pesach, because on Pesach we don't own any chametz. We certainly don't want to produce chametz, and therefore during the 7 days of Pesach they would not bring the Korban Toda. Neither would they bring it on Erev Pesach, because the Korban Toda was consumed during the day it was offered, and the night that followed. And of course, Erev Pesach, the night that follows, of course, is Pesach already. And there's an echo of this, you may or may not know, that we say in the morning prayers, for those who recite the daily morning prayers. It's not on the Shabbos Tefillah or the Yom Tov Tefillah, but in the daily Tefillah, in Psukei Zimra, we say Psalm 100. It's a short chapter of Tehillim, and it is about the Todah, about the Thanksgiving, and it is an echo of the Korban Todah. So on the days when they would not bring a Korban Todah in antiquity, we don't say Mizmor LeSoda, we don't say that particular chapter of Tehillim as well. What's interesting is that the Torah here legislates three measures of and three types of unleavened bread and one type of leavened bread. Actually, there were 10 loaves of each. It was a total of 40 loaves. 10, 10, and 10 were three types of matzah, And then the third set of 10 was chametz. Now, what I find fascinating, what I'm eager to share with you, is this little thought of a Bravanel, which we can call in praise of chametz. You know, chametz gets a bad rap, especially this time of year. We praise matzah, and we try to understand the significance or the the symbolism that underlies the Torah's prohibition of anything to do with chametz during Pesach. And we say that chametz is a symbol of the Yetzer Hara, and chametz is a symbol of arrogance and self-importance, and all of that is true. Uh, but at the same time, we do eat chametz all the rest of the year. So we normally say, yeah, it might be ideal to avoid chametz altogether, but for reasons of diet, for reasons of digestion, for reasons of maybe celebrating Shabbos and Yom Tov, we don't want to just have to eat matzah entirely the entire year. So therefore, just on Pesach, I mean, there probably is more to it as well. But my point is that chametz has and like spiritually or symbolically negative associations, which matzah does not. Says Abravanel, why does a person bring, why is he instructed to bring 10 loaves which are chametz here and the korban todah? Again, not on Pesach. On Pesach, he doesn't bring it at all for exactly that reason. What's the symbolism of it? Says Abravanel, thanksgiving, appreciation, gratitude, hakaras hatov, hoda'ah is very important, and a person should naturally feel a sense of gratitude to someone who has done him a good turn. And that appreciation especially should be directed to Hashem, and especially if a person is saved from peril or saved from danger, then he does feel that gratitude. On the other hand, Abravanel, I wouldn't say he's being cynical, he's just being realistic. He says people often don't see it that way. People often don't think, wow, I have so much to be grateful for in my life. People often think about all of their tzoras, about all of the things that frustrate them, all of the things that disappoint them, all of the things that they're bitter about. And even though in some cases a person may recognize his own shortcomings that brought him to that position of unhappiness, but very often we don't think of it that way. We think of what others have done to us, others have let us down, and how others have maybe deceived us or defrauded us, or I'm not getting what I should be getting from my colleagues or from my clients, or dare I say even from my spouse. That is human nature. Says Abravanel, he's quoting the Rambam here actually as well. He says that is a foolish way to look at things. It's only because that which is quotidian we take for granted. That which is everyday, that which is familiar, we take it for granted. We don't appreciate the air that we breathe. We don't appreciate the health that we enjoy. We don't appreciate all of the benefits and all of the pleasures and the comforts and the blessings in our lives. Korban Todah has three types of matzah, three types of bread, which is unleavened bread. Says Abravanel that when we think about it, there are three sources of most misfortune that we may bemoan derived from three possible areas. And actually, he's right. I try to think about anything that comes from another source and not too much. He said part of it is the human condition. We are mortal. We are physical. We are subject to physical infirmities. Now, a person may live to 120. Not too many people do, but even those who do, they will inevitably endure the effect of aging. Even someone who doesn't reach anything close to 120, in his or her mature senior years, will experience the effects of aging, which are not always pleasing. the indignity of aging, some have called it. And this is a product of the human condition. This is a product of the fact that we are mortal, we are temporal. Now, it's true that a person might, lo aleinu, suffer from an illness and possibly, before his time, but that's all a product of physicality. Nothing which is physical is perfect and endures forever. That's the nature. And if a person says, "Yeah, but I want to live forever," but then you're saying, "I don't want to be human." That is the nature of the human condition, or all life is that way as well. He said, then we often suffer from the exercise of bechir of other people. Now, I might not like it when someone does something to me which is nasty or self centered, or if he lets me down, or if he doesn't deliver when I've entered into an agreement or something like that. And very often those things are not actionable in law. But Hashem gives free will to every person, to me and to you and to all of us. And it's not right for a person to blame Hashem for something which has happened to him when that which happened to me was another person exercising his free will. Hashem does not intervene to inhibit someone else exercising his free will, nor does Hashem intervene for me exercising my free will. And if I exercise my free will in the wrong way, then I will pay the price for it. And that's the third thing he says. So much of human suffering is self-inflicted. And he gives some examples. The quantity or the choice of food and drink which we ingest, substance abuse, addictive or destructive habits, lifestyle choices, thrill seeking, and this sort of thing. Uh, uh, Behavior which is inimical to our own interests. Okay, that is part of the human condition. Very few people have such unerring self-control as to never do anything which is disadvantageous to them. But then don't blame God for it. That's your own choice. Occasionally, a person might do something and say, "I didn't know that was dangerous. I didn't realize that smoking is dangerous." Well, I don't think there's anyone alive today who's not aware of the danger of smoking. Perhaps someone who took up smoking 50 or 80 years ago, perhaps. So occasionally there can be those instances. Yeah, I accept. But for the most part, he says those are the three. Says Abravanel, the three types of matzah correspond to those three things. And he says the word matzah is related to like matzah umariva. Matzah means to strive or to dispute. It is an expression of anger and to strive, but not to strive in the sense of aspiration, but to fight. Matzah umariva. The word matzah also means to blame God. So a person says, "God, you've done me a bad turn." Says the symbolism here is recognize that those things which you would inherently or instinctively say, "God, you haven't been as good to me as I was hoping or I was expecting or as I deserve," consider that the reasons for your circumstances, which may not be to your liking, are probably one of those three. What about chametz? So here's the interesting thing. As I said, this time of year especially, we think of chametz and we recognize the negative symbolism. But the word chametz also, which means leaven, it also is associated with allowing something to linger. That's the whole point about why we don't have chametz on Pesach, because they were rushed out of Egypt. The dough did not have a chance to rise. So chametz has the implication of allowing something to ferment, to if a person is cogitating, if a person is contemplating. It says, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, "Ashrei dayan shemischametz es dino." Happy is the judge who allows the judgment before him, the case before him, to linger. He doesn't decide just impulsively or instinctively, contemplates it carefully, and he gives it himself a chance, like we say, to sleep over it. So he says this is why there are three types of matzah, that is to say, three aspects of the korban toda, where the person should recognize that I owe God an enormous debt of gratitude, and the things that haven't gone my way, how much of them are the fault of the human condition, other people exercising their free will, which Hashem doesn't prevent another person from exercising free will, or perhaps most troubling for a person is he recognizes, if he's honest, it's my own sad fault. Whether it's a relationship which is not going well, or a job which is not going well, or other circumstances. Again, there are multiple factors, but frequently my own choices have led me to the circumstances. So that's why he says one quarter, one of the types of bread is chametz, and this, therefore, I say, is in praise of chametz. And I would say that if a person thinks of all of the joyful things in his life, all of the beneficial things, perhaps I should say, if a person takes pleasure from the things that he should enjoy in life. Sadly, there are some people who don't. There are some people who maybe they have a lot of blessings, but they take no joy from it. I once knew a woman, was a guest in a home. A woman said, "My only pleasure in life is complaining." Very sad. But if a person appreciates the blessings in his life, so then you will decide that actually I have no reason to feel aggrieved that Hashem has not done well by me. And this is hinted to in Dayenu, like we said a few minutes ago in the Seder. We say Dayenu, Ilu hotzianu mimitzrayim, v'lo asavehem shvatim. If Hashem had done this and not that, but He did that for us, and the next thing and the further thing as well, there are 15 stanzas in Dayenu. And then we say Al achas kama v'kama tova mechupal mechupeles tova mechupal mechupeles. We say v'hisha'amda lavosenu v'hakadosh baruch hu matzilenu miyadam. The fact that we are still here after all of these generations, and after the fact that indeed they do try to destroy us in every generation, and yet we are still here. So this, in a way, I know I've taken up most of our time, but in a way, this is the kind of counterpart to the denigration of chametz by recognizing that the word chametz has a positive aspect as well, but not on Pesach, not on Pesach. I want to, just so that we do have a thought, at least a single thought, which is pertinent directly to the Haggadah. So, one of the famous comments of Abravanel on the Haggadah is about Manishtana. Manishtana, as we know, the four questions, one of the centerpieces. In a way, it's the centerpiece of the whole Seder experience, because if one is fortunate enough to celebrate the Seder together with younger people, especially children. Maybe someone has his own child or even grandchildren. But even if you're just a guest in the home and there are children there, perhaps the children can be a bit disruptive or distracting. But this is the opportunity to fulfill the charge of transmitting Jewish memory. I've often said that history is his story. Memory is my story, and I share it with, if I'm fortunate to have children and grandchildren, then the Manishtana is the opportunity for the children to shine. And by the way, even if you have only adult children, or even if there are no children at all, maybe if you have contemporaries, peers at the Seder together, then certainly they should ask one another. We like to always start with the youngest for Manishtana. So much has been written about the four questions, and many ask, and Barbanel asks as well, why does the child ask these particular questions? Why not ask about the 4 cups of wine, or why we wash our hands without a blessing? And there are many unusual features of the Seder night. I mean, for one thing, you could ask why we're starting so late. I mean, normally, a child certainly would normally eat, let's say, at 6 p.m., maybe 7 p.m., here in London, especially after the clocks change, we're not going to get the Seder underway. Certainly, the eating part is not going to start before probably around 10 o'clock, maybe much later. So if the child is even still awake, then he may wonder what kind of a meal is this? There's no food. What kind of a meal? You have a sprig of parsley. This is called food. So there are lots of questions that the child should ask, and by all means, the children are encouraged to ask. But the statutory questions are about the matzah and the other features, about the moror, kulo moror. And Abravanel says like this, that The reason the child asks those questions is that there is an inherent paradox within those observations that the child makes. The most fundamental underlying paradox or contradiction is the fact that we do things on the Seder night which reflect our sense of aristocracy. We wear fine clothing. Men many times wear a kittel. We wear more for the women jewelry. We bring out our finest china if you have, crystal if you have. I say if you have, meaning if you have for Pesach. And in many households, the Pesach, like accoutrements are very beautiful because since we don't use them the whole year, they don't normally get worn out. But I'm just saying that there are many aspects of the sense of like wealth and aristocracy. We have wine and more wine and more wine. Everybody has wine. And these are symbols of aristocracy, but at the same time, we have very prominent symbols of poverty. Holach ma'anya means this is the bread of affliction. We have the Mora, which is certainly a symbol of affliction. Even when we have the karpas, the karpas is a very unadorned, a very humble vegetable. It's normally not cooked even or sauteed. If you have potatoes, you've got to cook the potatoes, otherwise you can't eat them. But some use a radish or a carrot or celery or parsley. These are very like a poor man's almost subsistence of food. Imagine if a person could only live, had only celery on which to live, or carrots, or something like that. So the child sees symbols of poverty, of affliction, and he equally sees symbols of affluence. He sees the wine, he sees the finery, he sees people who are reclining, which is again a symbol of ease and of luxury. So it's those inherent contradictions which pique the curiosity of the child. The answer, the underlying answer is Avadim Hayinu Lefarba Mitzrayim, that we are not recalling only the affliction, or I should say, we are initially recalling the affliction, but then we are celebrating the fact that now we are free. It's the transition. It's the journey. It's the Jewish journey from affliction to freedom. And even though that cycle was and repeated many times in Jewish history, and as I said before, Abravanel in his own lifetime experienced that more than once, but most dramatically, most traumatically with the expulsion from Spain, that experience of Galus and Geul, of exile and redemption, or in his case, it was more, it was the exile and the anticipation or the yearning for the redemption. I suppose that's the case in for has been the case in Jewish history throughout the experience of redemption and the yearning, I'm sorry, the experience of affliction and servitude and persecution and the hope and the aspiration and the expectation of the redemption. So the matzah, which is the primary symbol of Pesach, as I think we would all agree, embodies both of those. It starts the Seder as the bread of affliction, but it ends as the bread of redemption. And the bread of redemption is the afikomen. The afikomen symbolizes the ultimate redemption, and that is why the children are the ones who find the afikomen or snatch the afikomen and hide the afikomen. The children are the instruments, are the catalyst for the redemption. And this is why the matzah is such a potent symbol on Pesach, because it embodies both, and it embodies the space in between, the transition, the journey from exile to redemption. Thank you for listening, and may we experience the true redemption speedily in our times, and may we enjoy the Pesach Seder with only good news from Israel, and for all of us, for all of our families as well. May we appreciate with gratitude the divine blessings in our life and not take any of that for granted, nor shall we take one another for granted. And in that way, B'ezrat Hashem, we will indeed merit the Gula Shlema Bimhera V'Amen. Thank you very much, and wish you Laila Tov, wonderful Shabbos, Shabbos Hagadol. For those who are with us in Golders Green, we're doing the Shabbos Hagadol Drasha at Kesher on Erev Tavshilin, what you need to know, Erev Tavshilin. So please join us, and we wish everyone a Chag Kasher Sameach, wherever you may be. Laila Tov.